Hi everyone, it's Orit Esther from Orit Talk, and as I mentioned in the last Orit Talk, there's something that came to me in recognition of this week's Parsha. It's not directly connected to it, but it sparked something inside of me that got me thinking a little bit. And again, I'm just sharing with you my thoughts and something I've been pondering for a long time now, for quite a few months now, but it took me time. Sometimes it takes us time to really try to connect the dots. But I've been wondering for a very, very long time, how is it that Israel is sort of like this state of guinea pig, where we're the only country that's sort of being required, or being pressured, or being outgoing, I don't know, whatever word you want to use, to vaccinate, and not just vaccinate once, twice, but three times now. And how is it that we are sort of like the trial country here, being looked at? And it feels a little bit uneasy and might even make some people feel so uncomfortable that they feel uncomfortable, maybe considering to visit and considering to eventually, please Hashem, make Aliyah, where everyone needs to be anyway. And it does feel uncomfortable also, of course, to people here. And again, this is not a discussion about whether to vaccinate or not. I've given my opinion before. My opinion is just one of many others of mundane personalities and people who are vocal and speak their mind. But I just, feel like I've already shared my stance personally because I was asked, not because I feel like there's anything novel about it. But it does make me wonder, why is it that, or how is it, not so much why, the why belongs to Shemaim, but how is it that, or what are we supposed to make of it, or what can be a possible reason? Again, this is just my scenario. This is not something, anything more, but sharing my thoughts about it. I'd love to hear back from you if you tend to think about it on this level, or you never thought about it and you want to just share with me personally what your thoughts are after hearing this. But my thought was, again, how is it that we are being, so to speak, the trial country? And what came to me was that Dafka, particularly because we are a country, the Jewish people, it is a Jewish state, a state that represents God, holiness, Torah, at least, we're supposed to, even if on paper it's not the majority of the country that are necessarily observant and keep the Torah. We're leaving all that aside. We're talking about, on a global level, Israel is known as a country that knows the God of Israel, where we have in our midst on the land Yerushalayim, Bet HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, and such. So because of that high holy stature that people hold us on high, it would make so much sense that because there's uncertainty, and we are going to say uncertainty being we are on the trial here, the guinea pig status, so to speak, of being tested to see how we are responding to these vaccinations. Most who have been vaccinated, those who've been vaccinated once, twice, three times around, and the whole concept of the green pass, and how this is being regulated and tried out. And again, we can agree or we can disagree with whether or not the tactics are right or wrong. I'm not talking about that. I'm just stating facts. The facts are is that we are essentially, that's how we're being looked at. We are being looked at right now in a situation where essentially we are in a place where people are looking at us, they're viewing us, they're looking at us, and there's uncertainty around what we're doing. That's for sure. Everyone's sort of like looking and saying, okay, let's see what's going to happen here in Israel. Let's see how the democracy and is going to play out, and what's going to happen, and what are going to be the results coming from this this trial of vaccination, and how are the people going to respond. But it's particularly because everyone knows that this country represents the will of Hashem, where the eyes of Hashem, as the Torah says this, the eyes of Hashem are constantly looking at the people of Israel in Israel, at the land of Israel. We are constantly being looked at, we're constantly being supervised, we're constantly being nourished and nurtured directly from, so to speak, the hands of God. Whereas in Chutz La'aretz and out of the country, there are angels and angel ministries and representatives of God, okay, that are the ones that, so to speak, are the messengers of God that supervise those in Chutz La'aretz. There's not that necessary direct contact and supervision as is particularly in the land of Israel, for those who live in the land of Israel. With that being said, wouldn't it make sense that it would be a country that has such, it's the opportunity, and here's the main point I'm trying to get to, is Israel has the opportunity to now show the world that yes, and many of us aren't thinking on this level, and I almost want to say, those who are observant right now or not so observant right now, it doesn't matter. We're not conscious of this. This wasn't something that we would have thought about doing. But when you think about it, it's already been done. It's already happening. This is where we are right now, right? Everyone's looking at us. Hashem is, so to speak, in my opinion, this is again just a thought, setting the stage of putting a country that's under the supervising eyes, direct supervising eyes and care and nurture of Hashem. And he's saying to the world that this country is, so to speak, they're going to be going through this trial period, but they are under the wings and they are under the direct care of me, God, so to speak. And they are declaring their utmost level of Emuna by, so to speak, putting themselves in this position where they're setting themselves up, so to speak, to be the example for the rest of the world. Again, I'm not getting into whether or not it's correct or it's you agree with vaccinations, you feel it's being forced. Well, everyone's vaccinated in Israel. I know some of you might say, well, this is not something that we have a choice with. It's true, 100%. I would say probably 80% of the people here in Israel are probably getting vaccinated because they feel pressured to be vaccinated. I'm not saying no. I'm saying, though, the facts is that we are, most of us, are being vaccinated. Again, whether we believe in it or not. And actually, the more people don't believe in it and are still doing it, they're being forced to now trust in God even more. Think about it. We're being forced to trust in God even more because of the fact that this is sort of, so to speak, the circumstances that most people find themselves under, having to either vaccinate or relinquish some part of, I don't know if I could say freedom, but some part of free movement. It hasn't happened completely yet. I haven't had anybody tell me that they're not vaccinated although I can't say that for sure. There are some people who say to me that they feel pressured in certain workplaces, and they do feel that at certain workplaces. And I think I've also heard it from America too. Actually, I have heard it from people in America that their jobs are also enforcing on them. So it's maybe not global, but it's individually in certain places that they feel that they're being frowned upon or even told, if you're not, you can't work here anymore. So we are noticing that this is sort of like the move. And again, I'm not here to talk about what, where, how, whether it's right or wrong. I'm here to state a fact. The fact is, this is the way it is for the most part in the undermining level of what's being required here in Israel is this is what we need to do. So again, let me just finish this off and say, so in my opinion, this actually, again, I'm not for it. I'm not saying to you at all, I've said that 3 times at least during this Or talk, I'm not saying I think this is the right thing or the wrong thing. It's not up to me. I'm not in the government. I have really no say in that. I'm just davening Hashem that everyone, whether they vaccinate or not, should be healthy and no one should be sick. And that at the end of the day, in my opinion, the vaccination contains nothing more but water, and there's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's only Hashem. That's what the Baal Shem Tov teaches. There's nothing there. There's only Hashem. And whatever's decreed upon a person, I'm going back a little bit to my Emuna perspective of vaccinations, whatever Hashem decrees on a person, whether they vaccinate or not, is going to happen. There's nothing you could do. You can't outwit Hashem's will. We need to daven, we need to ask Hashem for clarity, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, these are the facts. And the fact is that Hashem willed it and he did. He willed it for this country to be the trial country for the entire world to look upon. And yet it does profess a level of Emuna that it would be the country that is under the constant supervision of God 24/7, not by any ministering angels, but directly through the eyes of God, that is being watched. We are being watched on every single moment, being cared for and looked at. That's what happens when you live in Israel. You are personally being supervised directly in the eyeball of Hashem. And so wouldn't it be interesting to also look at it from that perspective, to not just look at it as, oh, Israel's enforcing and I don't know, and God forbid it could lead to Lashon Hara, and God forbid no one should be speaking about Israel. It's one of the bigger, higher levels of Lashon Hara to be speaking anything wrong about the land of Israel, to the point where even if you say in Israel, oh, it's really hot in Israel, that could be considered even a level of Lashon Hara. So this country is holy, and to be speaking about it, one has to be very, very sensitive and careful to what it means to cause any degradation of the country in anybody's eyes, God forbid. So we have to be very, very careful when we're talking about anything, including the country being vaccinated, forced, whatever. Be very careful how you speak about the country, because at the end of the day, we don't know. We just know that if this is what Hashem willed for it to be here in this country, it must mean that we are an example of Emuna, because yes, we are sort of being enforced or being pressurized to do it as a country, and we don't know necessarily how the outcome is going to be. I just feel, from my perspective, again, remember, this is only little old me, little Orit Esther sitting in Ramat Bet Shemesh perspective, that this kind of professes to us what it means to really rely on Hashem, and to really, and again, that could mean also those who don't want to vaccinate. That's also them completely relinquishing everything and relying on Hashem, and remembering that Hashem is supervising us, and that, and the fact is that, again, we're being looked at. Again, all eyes are always on Israel, even though we're such a little tiny country, but everyone's looking at us because they want to see how Israel is responding, even in their own mental perspective, about doing something that seems to be somewhat unsure. More than unsure, some will say. Some will say even downright risky. However you might perceive it, it doesn't matter per se. At the end of the day, I'm just looking at it from an Emuna perspective. The fact that we have the opportunity to sort of be in that place where we're saying we have no one else to rely on but Hashem Yitbarach, under the circumstances that we're being tried under and put under here in the land of Israel. So just another perspective. I find it very, very interesting, and I found that it was tweeted to me more so during this week's Parshat Vayera, only because when we learn about the fact that in every activity, we know this, but the fact that in every activity, as we see in Avraham Avinu, in every mundane activity, in everything that goes on in the world, in every bit of news that goes on in the world, we find that it's connected and there's a kesher to Hashem. It's interesting, very interesting, that this too allows us to think about things from that perspective, the perspective of trying to understand what is the divine will and message here in this as well. So Be'ezrat Hashem, I hope I'm interested to hear what you all have to say. Please write to me. I'd be happy to share some of your responses in upcoming Or Talks. But again, just something to think about. With that, I'm wishing you a wonderful Shabbos, a Shabbat Shalom, and it should be a Shabbat filled with peace and health and relaxation and Geula. Please Hashem, Geula very soon. Have a wonderful day.